So welcome to Tripod, our travel retail themed podcast in association with the Seaver Group. I'm Martin Moodie.
I'm Roger Jackson.
Roger, great as always to be with you. Now, while we're talking, I'm looking, as I tend to do, I must say, at our website. And our lead story today is that Qatar Duty Free has been awarded the accolade of World's Best Airport Shopping in the Skychefs Award, the annual, very prestigious awards. And that came on the same day that Hamad International Airport, Qatar Duty Free's homeland, as it were, won the World's Best Airport Award. So pretty big recognition there of excellence. Now, you're in the region, you're very close by, and you visit Qatar Duty Free very frequently. What do you make of that accolade?
I think, first of all, it's very well deserved, and it doesn't surprise me. I've also seen it on the brand new Moodie Report website as well, which I've got to say, Martin's looking fantastic. I think, when you bring together, we talk about Trinity, which obviously is one of the other Moodie Report events of the year, but when we talk about true Trinity, which is bringing retailer, airline, and airport together, I've been in travel retail now nearly 15 years, and to bring those three together, to get them genuinely working together, is one of the hardest things for anyone to do, whether you're a brand owner or one of those entities that I've just mentioned. What Qatar Duty Free do is all of those three things sit in the same team. You've obviously got Tab and his amazing team at Qatar Duty Free who work together, but they ensure all of those three things come together, and then obviously partnerships with brands on all sides, and obviously service providers, and they bring it all together and make it work. And you've also got to look at the openings of the Orchard, which is just incredible, breathtaking. I think most people would say it's definitely the best part of an airport, in the world. In fact, it's just been voted so don't take my word for it. And I think when you bring all of that together and what they've been able to achieve there, it's just absolutely fantastic. And I think it's probably a three-pronged attack from them. It's the right team, the right resources, but also the right structure, that all of those three all report into the same team. I enjoy traveling to Qatar. I think a lot of people do, and to hear that they've won this award is not a shock in any sense. And huge congratulations to Tab and the team over there.
Yeah, they've had some year, haven't they? They won the Frontier Award for Airport Retailer of the Year, run by our colleagues at Frontier and DFNI. They won our Airport Food and Beverage Offer of the Year at the FAB Awards, and I think a whole lot of other awards on the evening. Best opening, best lounge, you name it. They picked up, a lot of awards at FAB, and now the Skychefs Awards, very much, I would say, the icing on the cake. So bravo to the management at Hamad International Airport and at Qatar Duty Free, Tab Musla and his team. Fantastic achievement.
The scary thing, Martin, as well, as you and I both know, there's more to come as well. So there's other exciting projects soon to be launched, and some I'm sure that I don't even know about as well. So this isn't, the end for those guys. I know Tab and the team, and they have got some ideas that they're going to really try and really move the goalposts on for everyone else. So yeah, but it's great. It's great competition for the region. We've got to mention Abu Dhabi, which opened late last year, in November last year. I flew out of there myself just this weekend in the past. Great experience as well. Very different to Qatar, but great experience. And as you know, there's plans to, build a brand new airport now in Dubai as well. So 2032, we're expecting a new airport there. Plus, Bahrain opened not that long ago. Bahrain was a brand new airport, and before that, Oman opened. Sharjah has a new terminal that's in play as well. And then before we get on to KSA and obviously the work that Saudi Arabia are doing, so the aviation industry and the travel retail industry in the Middle East is absolutely on fire. And all of this great work is just going to basically ensure that this region continues to be the region that everyone talks about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that competitive set is just raising the bar all the time, isn't it? Very well said indeed, Roger. Well, it's time, as always, to bring in our special guest. Shall we do that, Roger?
Yeah, let's get him in.
So this episode's special guest is Lance Hayward, founder and managing director at the Hayward Partnership in the UK, and a very well-known and respected figure in the travel retail and travel catering sector indeed. And those sectors, his company provides consultancy to airlines, airports, suppliers, and brands, as well as a whole range of recruitment and mentoring services. Well, Lance's CV is impressive indeed. He spent nearly 30 years with Alpha LSG, the UK joint venture between Alpha Flight and LSG Skychefs, a major force in the UK in-flight services sector. Now, he put all that experience to very good use by creating the Hayward Partnership in 2014, a business that has flourished, perhaps as we will hear, way beyond Lance's own expectations. Well, he also uses that experience to the benefit of several companies as a non-executive director. Lance, welcome to Tripod.
Thank you very much, Martin. Roger, lovely to meet you both. And thank you for inviting me to this, well, it's legendary Tripodcast in the industry.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm not sure if it's quite legendary yet, but we're working on it, Lance. And thanks again for being with us. Well, I'm going to pass over to my partner in Tripod Crime. Roger, take it away.
Lance, really great to meet you. Luckily we're connected on LinkedIn, so I've definitely heard about you and your business. We always start Tripod in the same place, which is we take you back to where it all began for you. So if you could tell us a little about those early days where you were born and raised and schooled, and also just some of those formative days and what came later.
Great, I'd be delighted to, Roger. Well, to start off with, I'm Anglo-Indian. I was born in Mumbai in India, and way back in 1962. It doesn't seem a long time ago. My earliest memories were really of a very happy childhood. I mean, my mum and dad and I lived in a one-bedroom flat in a place called Thana, just outside Bombay, and we shared this one-bedroom flat with a puppy and a cat and a chicken, and you can understand there's total chaos in the household. Sadly, my dad passed away when I was sort of 6, and I came to the UK in 1972 with my mother when I was just 10. And we really literally landed on these shores, not a great deal in our pockets. We rented one room with a lovely Indian family. My mother was amazing. She worked all hours under the sun in a cassette making factory and to put food on the table. And she's an amazing cook, by the way, fantastic curries if you're ever in the area. And she gave me a chance to get a British education. It was almost wasted because it was fair to say I was not a natural academic, much more interested in playing sport morning, noon, and night. I was into rugby, cricket, basketball, football, tennis, athletics, you name it. And much to my teacher's surprise at the time, I somehow managed to scrape together just enough grades to get into a Bachelor of Arts sports degree in Newcastle upon Tyne. I think I only got in because I played sort of county level rugby and basketball at that time, so they waived my poor grades. In the holidays, I kind of worked in the flight kitchen at Gatwick called ACS. It was part of the Forte group in those days, and that's where I kind of fell in love with all things aviation. It was that sheer energy and buzz, which you'll be very familiar with, that's in the place that was so attractive. We were working flat out, tight deadlines, small teams, same time having lots of laughs at work and pubs and clubs afterwards, as you can imagine, for a young sort of 22-year-old. I have to confess I'm an Arsenal supporter, not going so well at the moment. Back since the days of George Graham in the 80s. I can still sing one, 1-0 to the Arsenal. But much to the annoyance of the rest of my cousins, who are all Tottenham fans, and those of you familiar with sort of English Premier League will understand that the intense rivalry between those two North London clubs. But it's all about jeopardy, isn't it, football? And you know, the highs and the lows are so what we go there for. It must be an awful being a Manchester City supporter when you know you're probably going to win everything, although recently not so much.
Not this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Lance, I'm a Bolton Wanderers fan, so unfortunately, I get more of the other side.
No, it's fantastic. Bolton's a great side. I mean, in my college there was a guy that actually was helping Bolton at the time, and they came up with this wonderful theory that most goals are scored in the penalty box, and therefore the whole idea of Bolton was to try and get the ball in the penalty box as much as possible. So the long game was sort of launched.
What a fascinating story. And I read, before we started as well, I read a lot about, and I know there's a lot more to it. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey, you know, into the travel retail world? I know you mentioned around small teams and tight deadlines and things like that, but just tell us a bit around most of your careers, obviously being in travel retail or, you know, travel retail services, let's say. Could you just tell us a bit about that journey and, you know, I guess on the way to present day as well?
Sure. Well, when I left education, it was actually, you know, quite tough to get a job. I thought, well, computer science was something that was growing at that time, so I thought I'd go into that, but it was seriously boring, so I stopped that straight away. I mean, it was the mid-80s at the time. Maggie Thatcher was Prime Minister. She was then promising a 3-day working week for us all and lots of leisure time and so on. So unfortunately, the planned boom in the sports and leisure business didn't quite materialize, which, you know, and really the sports degree that I had was of very little value unless I wanted to run a sports center, and I didn't really want to do that. So telling myself it was on a very temporary basis, I rejoined the flight catering firm ACS as a truck driver. I was loading and unloading catering and bars on flights, and it was an absolutely brilliant job. It was, you know, I kept fit. I got to meet the cabin crew from around the world, experienced the sort of exciting variety of F&B being uplifted by, you know, lovely long-haul carriers like ANA, and sort of the US carriers, and obviously a lot of stuff in Europe. And time just flew by, you know. Before I knew it, I got a mortgage and I was in a career. So I still call it entrapment, but I think it's a good link to that time. I mean, to cut a long story short, my curiosity and enthusiasm and capacity for hard work was apparently noticed, and I had the good fortune to have some really fantastic mentors throughout my career. You know, you won't know these names probably, but there's a guy called Roy Wilson who currently works with me, Bob Stevenson, a guy called James Drayton, Don McRitchie, Ken Adamson. You know, these are, you know, a lot of names that all had, you know, fantastic different strengths, but are all tremendously influential. And I learned a lot from each one of them. I was also kindly sponsored by Alpha at that time to take an intercompany MBA with Henley Management College, which was most insightful. I fell in love with strategy at that point. And this intercompany one was good because we had students from all around the world, blue chip organizations like BT and Ford and Birdseye. So we got to visit these places and see some of the stuff that was going on in these different organizations. So I progressed to the ranks, customer services, operational, commercial roles, until I was appointed as sales and commercial director, a role I held for 10 years. By this time, I was essentially the number 2 in UK and I in retail organization called Alpha Flight Services, Martin knows well, that had over 100 airline customers at that time, operated out of 18 locations and was turning over sort of 350 million, with over sort of 3,500 staff. Towards the end of that career with Alpha in 2012, I was appointed as Director of Strategy and Integration when, as Martin alluded, the new owners, Donata, agreed to sort of form a joint venture between Alpha and LSG in the UK, bringing the number one and number two in the market together. And that was a fascinating process because I led from the Alpha side, and it required going through a number of competition regulatory hoops, including the European Commission, the UK Office of Fair Trading, and the UK Competition Commission, which was a really fantastic learning experience for me. Together with the great support from a consultancy firm, Grant Thornton, I ran the post-merger integration for the new company, a project which took us sort of 18 months to complete. And Grant Thornton, who do hundreds of these around the world, kindly went on record saying it was one of the top 5 successful PMI projects that they'd been involved with. So that was good to hear. I hope they meant it. You never know.
And then
so that was kind of my journey.
Yeah, and then in 2014, was it? You went out on your own, and I know, and Roger knows, when you go out on your own, your original ideas of how that's going to look and what it subsequently becomes, for good or for bad, is very different. Tell us about that journey.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I'd always wanted to run my own business by the time I reached 50, and the integration kind of delayed that by a couple of years, but didn't want to miss out on that. To be honest, when I first started this, Martin, I wasn't in any real hurry. I thought, take a year out, get my golf handicap down to single figures, relax, chill out, and so on. But the plan didn't really work out as you planned. 2 weeks in, a guy called Ragbir Patar, who was then procurement director for IAG, contacted me, and he wanted me to sort of work with them to create a headline catering strategy for the airlines in their group, which at that time included sort of BA, Iberia, and Welling. To be honest, it was a dream first customer. I remain very grateful for the opportunity to work for them. The only problem was my golf membership remains my worst investment yet, because I'm still in the high sort of double figures. I think since IAG, I was then increasingly being asked to consider projects that were not in my comfort area, or I just didn't have the headroom to do them because I was on other stuff. So I reached out to some of the sort of really accomplished and trusted industry friends that I've built up around the world to join THP. And the criteria was, they have to be all independent. They need to be very highly experienced leaders in their field and passionate about the industry. There's no hierarchy, no egos in the team. When a project comes along, whoever is best placed to lead it will lead, and the others will, who can add value at the time will support. So that's happened many, many times over the years. And today we provide travel catering and retail consultancy to airlines, airports, suppliers, and brands to that sector. And we also provide, as you said, Martin, before in the introduction, recruitment and mentoring services for all of those channels.
So 10 years on, Lance, it's your 10th anniversary this year, am I right? Yes. How do you feel about where you are today, and what's the vision going ahead? Is the ambition still burning?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's ambition. I've got no real sort of desire to turn this into a multi-billion pound consultancy. This is more a lifestyle thing, Martin. It's I'm around with like-minded people who I really enjoy being with, and we do the stuff in this industry because we love it. It's a passion for us, and it also gives us some headroom to do our own stuff as well. So it's and you know, when you've got that, it's priceless. You know, we're not driving sort of sales, we're not pushing hard, we're not, you know, knocking on doors and being an irritant. When people come to us, we just really sort of chat with them and say, well, can we help you? Yes, if we can't help you, we'll tell you, or we'll find someone who can. You know, that's how it kind of works.
Yeah. I mean, I know a number of the individuals that you've got around you as associates, very talented, very experienced, very respected people. So it must be nice having the ability to just pull in the right talents at the right time, and all great personalities. Lance, you've spent the best part of 4 decades, gosh, in the aviation services world, shall we say? So I can think of few people better placed than you to kind of address or assess the state of health of the business of the travel retail business and the travel catering business. How do you see it? Obviously, we've been through this most sustained and severe crisis in industry history over recent times, but we're out of that now. So where are we at?
Yeah, well, I certainly think it's exciting times, Martin, for the global travel retail market. You know, it's rebounded really well after COVID, and as you know, the market size today is just over 60 billion US dollars. It's the forecasted growth varies depending on who you talk to, but you know, barring any environmental or political disasters like we're hearing in the news at the moment, the industry is set to grow at around 15%, you know, compounded annual growth rate between now and 2030. And I certainly see it is continuing to be an attractive industry, and I fully expect so new major entrants with global reach to try and enter into to get a part of it. I think that there are still challenges in there. You know, the logistics and customs legislation continue to be a challenge for the industry. I mean, especially for all those like the UK who've left the European Union. I actually tried to send a package to Romania recently and spent the best part of a day trying to work out all the paperwork that's associated with it for a courier for just quite a simple sort of document, which was so it must be hugely frustrating for people with exciting products to try and get things out there. Yeah, there are some great innovations emerging, you know, largely to technology, and particularly, you know, the rapid development of AI and augmented reality and improved connectivity on board, you know, both localized and wider. Still a way to go on that side, because it's still sort of lose my connection on certain parts of the world as we go along, but it's certainly heading in the right direction and all of that stuff. You know, although it's proved to be so difficult in the past, and we've tried to do it several times with a number of airlines and airports, I think there's still the opportunity for greater collaboration between airports and airlines. I think they both hold vital parts of the jigsaw that could really lead to a fabulous customer-centric proposition, and really give a sort of seamless sort of experience for them through the airports and onto the aircraft. And we are currently working on some proposals to help unlock that potential. So that's it's exciting stuff.
Lance, I couldn't agree with you more. I think what you see that's happening in Qatar at the moment, where you obviously have everything under one company, which obviously makes it a lot easier versus what we have in Europe. The synergies we've seen, Martin, I'm sure would agree, and the work that Tab and the team over there have done is just incredible. So when you've got an airline that is completely motivated to work with a duty-free operator, and then they're completely motivated to work with an airport, usually it's 3 different companies, as we see in most parts in the world, what you can achieve is just incredible. And some of the things they've been able to deliver there, from lounges to duty-free, you know, even to Wi-Fi, you know, as you mentioned, and even on board as well. When you've got all of those 3 working together, it is so powerful. I know they're in a relatively unique position where all 3 sit under the same management team, but also I think some of it comes down to that management team as well. They are, they're fantastic, and they're really, really, and there's still more to come there as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really interesting to watch, China and the US really battling out for the high ground in terms of innovation, and a lot of things flying out of there. I was talking to Lufthansa Industry Solutions of recently, and they were saying, I said, what's the role of Europe in all of this stuff? Is it just a straight battle between the two? He said, well, the European guys are there to make sure that we remain compliant, because there's a lot of rules being broken. There's some real GDPR issues with the sort of information that's out there that can be harnessed. But you really need to get that compliance bit locked in as well, which is an interesting perspective, I thought.
Yeah, and I've seen it on both sides. I've sat down with many a airline and a airport operator, and obviously a duty-free retailer, and it's very difficult to get the three wanting to talk. And I think so far, unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often. Slightly changing subject matters. I know you mentioned you're a big Arsenal fan. I know you mentioned obviously golf. Do you have any other interests outside of GT3 and travel retail?
Yeah, very much. I mean, sports for sure. I mean, I love sort of rugby internationals, golf I mentioned. I'm also a member of a music group, so I sort of try and murder some songs on the guitar. And we have a little group of 6 of us who go away on little trips, and we play music. We go and see various bands, and it's a good excuse to have a drink as well, I must admit. So lots of fun on that side. I also am involved with a number of businesses, which you say is an outside interest. It is outside interest of the THP. I'm a sort of founder, investor in a company called Island Craft Beverages, which I think, Martin, you're very familiar with, because you've been doing some fantastic support work and exposure to the 3 lads that are running it, Shane, Liam, and Donald, over the past years. It's been that's a lovely story. I mean, we started off with a blank piece of paper, sort of almost 2014, almost 10 years ago. We saw the potential in these guys, and they built up a global sort of supply chain, and they, of course, launched 2 Stacks whiskey, which is actually marvelous. You must get down there, Martin, if you haven't, because I'll join you, because it's really is a lovely setup now. Also work with a company called Creative Nature Superfoods, which that's another amazing company run by an inspirational sort of husband and wife team. What they do is provide sort of great tasting food for people with allergens and intolerances. It seems to be more and more people are suffering with these things, and it's so important to, particularly in the airline industry, to make sure that you make provision for these people and that they're safe on their journeys. And the other bit, I work with a company called Body Scan. During COVID, there wasn't much going on in the travel retail industry, and this was a healthcare company which quite amazingly has a sort of technology which in literally 2 minutes can scan you from head to toe and give you a health assessment. And what these guys do, these are experts, they provide evaluation and advice as how you can actually take yourself on a journey to better well-being. So I remain curious about the businesses, and that's what keeps me going for sure, Martin.
Wow, sounds amazing. I might be taking you up on one of those body scans.
Please do.
Before we take you on to our desert island feature, where hopefully you'll be able to tell us what you like to drink then. What would you say your key career or life influences have been to people that have made a big impact? I know you mentioned a lot of names already, Lance, but is there any that you'd single out that have really made that big impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that we mentioned some key people doing the work. My wife, she was a director at Kearney Travel, and she's wonderful at grounding. She's a joint director with me in the company, and she's a wonderful sort of advisory board that I have that keeps me grounded and keeps perspective, which is so important. So really, those are the key influences that I have in my life, and of course my team. You know, my team are the enthusiasm that they have. It's just, and some of them are getting on a bit, I must admit. But they still have that fantastic drive. You know, it just shows that you can grow old disgracefully, and I love it.
Yeah, you cheered me up a bit there, Lance. As I remember being the kind of new kid on the block as a duty-free journalist, and now I'm anything but a new kid. As I kind of near my seventh decade, it's quite worrying, really. But you've cheered me up, as I say. Well, listen, we're going to have some fun.
To be honest, Martin, you're an inspiration, because you've just kept going and you've never lost that enthusiasm. It's fantastic. Really love. I mean, I should have mentioned you as one of my sort of influences, of course.
He is to me,
Interesting,
Lance.
isn't it? You know, sorry, Roger, you carry on.
I was gonna say, he is to me, Lance, because without making it a Martin episode, with what Martin's gone through in his life, both professionally and personally, just spending time with Martin is an inspiration to me. I know we've never really touched on this, but absolutely, he is someone that, you know, I watched a documentary recently and they said, you know, the longer you live is a privilege. And knowing Martin and everything he does and how hard he works, too hard, should I say, way too hard, is for me is absolutely one of the people I look up to, and I hope I have a career and a life like Martin when I get there as well.
I'm sure
You're a long way ahead of you. You're a long way ahead of you, Roger. I think you're both being very kind to the older. Anyway, thank you. Well, Lance, we're going to have, well, we've had fun already, haven't we? We're going to have some more fun, though. We're going to take you to our resident desert island with duty-free status, of course. And we're going to fly you there in the comfort, or not the comfort, of Tripod Airlines. And while you're there enjoying the serenity of the island, we're going to give you some creature comfort. So I'm going to kick off. Are you a great reader, Lance? Because we're going to give you a choice of reading matter to while away the hours. What would it be and why?
I love reading. I always read just before I go to bed. I read all sorts of things, but if I was to choose, I'd probably have the top 3 years, like stuff from Michael Connolly, Joe Nesbo, Lee Child. Is those all, you know, good over evil triumphs, which and a bit of escapism, which I love.
Right, great choice. Roger, over to you.
And now the interesting one for me is your duty-free item of choice. This is the one I really want to know about, Lance.
Well, it has to be whiskey. I mean, I do love a whiskey, and you know, it's a close call between the Irish and the Scottish, and I'd have to sort of tip my hat towards the Irish. I mean, my father-in-law was a massive Jameson's fan, and he sort of converted me early on. But there are some fabulous stuff in Scotland as well. So it has to be a whiskey and of course 2 stacks. You know, a great product for everybody.
Yeah, I was expecting that, and I have tried it, by the way, and it is a very good. I've tried the ready to drink as well, and it's also very good. And then on to what you mentioned before, which I think is probably the biggest question of today's podcast, is you get to pick some music, so either one album or one song, and I guess in your instance, it could be played as well on the guitar. So what would you be choosing?
Well, I would certainly choose things that I can play. So it has to be very simple chords. So, you know, things from Simon & Garfunkel, Eagles are always a good sort of good song. It may not be quite up with the kids, but it's still music that has lasted very well throughout the ages.
Very, very good choices. Music I happen to love. Just going back to the previous question, yeah, I remember during the dark days of the pandemic, Lance, we were staying in a hotel in Hong Kong, in a service department actually there, and things were very tough. We just arrived in Hong Kong. I can't remember if I was doing hotel quarantine or not, but it was certainly a tough place. And at the time, we ran something called the QDF Factor. Do you remember that, Roger? And that was the most brilliant initiative by Qatar Duty Free to try and stimulate the business worldwide, because nobody was doing any business outside of Hainan or Qatar. And so they offered this amazing prize of a 6-month listing, free listing with Qatar Duty Free. And we were flooded with entries. Well, here was I in the service department at this Hong Kong hotel in Kowloon somewhere, and all this whiskey and tequila and you name it, perfume was all coming in. You know, I don't know what they thought at reception. And I remember 2 stacks from them because they entered, is it called Dram in a Can?
That's right. Yeah, it's 100 ml of lovely whiskey in a can, and they do a malt one as well now.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant idea. And I love Irish whiskey like you, and I thought 2 stacks is really, really good juice. And that idea of putting whiskey, a good whiskey, into a small can was just a fantastic idea. And I'm really glad to hear you say it's taken off, because they're good guys.
They certainly are. That dram in a can is fantastic for festivals or on a golf course. You just stick a couple of cans in there and go around, and it's very, very leisurely.
Yeah, not sure it would help my game too much, but never mind. Okay, so we've got through music. And maybe while you're playing, you can serenade in your 3 special guests, because we've arranged a desert island dinner for you. You've been on your own for a while, so it's time to have some company. Now, those 3 guests, Lance, can be from history or they can be today living. Who would they be, and why would you have them for dinner?
Well, they're all sports guys, and I've got posters of these guys in my gym at home. And the first one's Michael Jordan, probably the best basketball player that's ever lived. Bjorn Borg, I still remember those battles between Bjorn Borg and Connors and Ilie Nastase. It's just the fantastic golden age of tennis. And of course, Muhammad Ali. He made boxing, a fantastic, sport, which went beyond just, watching 2 guys slugging it out, and it was just fantastic. Yeah, those are the 3 for sure.
Oh, really, really great choices. I also remember Borg against McEnroe, wasn't it? They had some pretty epic battles. I seem to remember. And Muhammad Ali, you're right. He transcended not only boxing, he transcended sport. He was just such a great, great man. Okay, Lance. Well, then, just to close off Tripod, and to thank you, we're going to offer you to take you on Tripod to any holiday destination in the world. So this is your chance to say, what's top of your bucket list? Where would it be, and again, why?
Just to be clear, Martin, is Tripod offering sort of business or first, or?
Well, we're a monoclass carrier, Roger, aren't we? And I'm not sure that class has actually been defined. Roger, what do you think?
Yeah, ours sort of goes below economy, Lance.
I think it's not really on my bucket list because I've done it before, but it was just brilliant. It's like a double destination, so hopefully you've got some fuel in that aircraft. It's Maldives and Sri Lanka. That holiday for me, it had everything. It had sort of peace, quiet, relaxation, culture, spectacular scenery, some real good stories like the stick fishermen in Sri Lanka. And fabulous beaches and marine life. So that encapsulated everything. But I've been blessed, Martin. I've had some great trips because my wife was like a senior director at Q&E Travel, and they had some fabulous places around the place, which I'd very kindly carried the bags to.
Well, great choices of destinations. So we'll get you there somehow on Tripod Airlines. Lance, we were just talking offline before this started, and looking back over the years, I probably known you now through best part of 3 decades. You've been in the business 4 decades. me too, or slightly more, rather worryingly. And it's great. It's great to see that experience and the way you've used it. You know, you've worked for big companies, and then putting all that experience to good use, running your own business and running it with some style and some flair, and by the sounds of it, some fun. So it's a really nice story, and congratulations on everything you've done. But for who you are as well. You've got an amazing reputation in this business. Roger didn't know much about you, so I started to tell him, and that's how it works. He gives some recommendations, and I give him some. And I said, let's get Lance on the show. He's going to be great, and you have been.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Martin. Roger, lovely to meet you. Hopefully I'll meet you in person in one of the shows pretty soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Lance. And you've had an amazing career that seems to have lots more left in it as well, and not just in travel retail either. So I'm really looking forward to catching up soon.
Great. Thanks. Thanks very much, Roger. Thanks, Martin.
All right. Mr. Lance Hayward, thanks very much. So yet another great tripod episode, Roger. That was Mr. Lance Hayward. Pretty much 40 years in the business, and they've been quite momentous years. He's been on some career journey, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think, sometimes you get to listen or talk to someone in this case, and I think I'd pay to hear him speak, Martin, as like a keynote speaker on his own event. Lance has had an unbelievable career. And as he said himself, it's nowhere near finished, not only just in obviously our industry, but also in some of those exciting things he's invested in outside, including whiskies and also in the medical world as well. I think, when you just speak to somebody who's got so much zest for life, it's infectious, and it was absolutely fantastic to hear from Lance. So, yeah, it was an absolute privilege.
It was indeed. All right, Roger. Well, we've got plenty more episodes of Tripod coming along in this new series out there to our ladies and gentlemen viewers. We can promise you some great guests. And if you would like to appear on Tripod, we would like to hear from you. But in the meantime, this is Martin Moodie saying, see you next time.
See you next time.